All right, we are live streaming on YouTube, allegedly.
Allegedly. All right. Hey, everybody. Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here. And there is just, again, we're entering another day of absolute insanity. Now, we're going to talk about the stock market, about coronavirus, about all this insanity in multiple different countries, because obviously this news is affecting the world. There's a hugely different demeanor among people walking on the street in the last couple of days. You walk down the street, you talk to people, and there's an air of discomfort and concern mixed with a lot of people that are just scoffing at it and going, this is nothing, this is stupid. And, there's a reason to be concerned, not in fear. We're going to go into a lot of these issues today. Make sure to hit that like button and check the links below and find us on float.app as well. Super chats help a lot. We are live initially as we record this. Let's go into some of this news, as we got 2 people out of 138,000 people watching right now. The first article we're going to go into is some of the most recent news that Trump has declared a national emergency, so a state of emergency to combat coronavirus, authorizes waiving of laws and regulations. And as the article goes into, President Donald Trump on Friday announced a new series of measures to combat the coronavirus and treat those who are affected, while pushing back on criticism that his administration was unprepared to confront the pandemic. Speaking in the White House Rose Garden, Trump declared a national state of emergency that could free up $50 billion to fight the pandemic, and said that he was empowering the Secretary of Health and Human Services to waive certain laws and regulations to ensure the virus can be contained and patients treated. And I quote, "To unleash the full power of the federal government, I am officially declaring a national emergency," Trump said. 2 very big words, he added. Maybe for some. Trump said the action would open up access to up to $50 billion for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against the disease. And I do want to note that those words are pretty strong, though. To say to unleash.
I've got the best words, Josh, the biggest words, the best words ever.
Man, to unleash the full power of the federal government. That can mean a whole host of things. And we should note that a state of emergency is essentially martial law. There's not much of a difference between a state of emergency and martial law. They could basically waive the Constitution. They can waive all laws. And by laws, I mean the ones that are said to protect us, though it's just a piece of paper. I realize that. But the fact of the matter is, this could get a whole lot worse before it gets better, regardless of how the coronavirus itself affects people. And there are dangers involved for elderly, obese, and people with lung problems, people that have autoimmune diseases. But with that said,
everyone running for president right now.
President right now, it's just a whole geriatric convention. But here's the issue: it's more about freedoms at the end of the day, and this is going to dramatically affect the freedoms of not just Americans, but Canadians as well, and British and so on. And we're going to get into much more of that soon. I do want to show the Twitter message, the original Twitter message on the screen here, Tim, from Donald Trump's Twitter. It says, "To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency." Just so you guys could see the original tweet as he spoke in the Rose Garden, and does not yet have the coronavirus. Actually, the Brazilian prime minister was tested negative despite popular claims for coronavirus. So that story did end up being fake. But moving on to the next article here out of BBC News. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau's wife tests positive for coronavirus, and as we reported yesterday, there was evidence that she was getting tested for it after being sick. And now we have full confirmation as of last night that she does indeed have coronavirus. And it's interesting because obviously Trudeau already self-isolates himself from his wife for more than a few reasons. But this is where, the prime minister doesn't care about anyone. When his wife gets affected and when it affects him personally, he's like, okay, we might close the borders. I'm going to go into this article quickly. It says Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, wife of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has tested positive for coronavirus after returning from a trip to London, a statement from the Prime Minister's office says. And I quote, she will remain in isolation for the time being. She is feeling well, is taking all the recommended precautions, and her symptoms remain mild, it read. The couple is now self-isolating. Mr. Trudeau is in good health, and has no symptoms, according to his office, but will remain in isolation for 14 days. There are no plans at present for Mr. Trudeau to be tested for coronavirus. And I quote, the Prime Minister will continue to fully assume his duties and will address Canadians tomorrow, his office said. I was really hoping that he was not going to do anything, but carrying on, it says there are currently approximately 103 confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Canada. And moving on to the next article, which affects Italy. And by the way, we'll get back to Canada later. I do want to note that Canada did close its borders. Well, they're talking about closing its borders. They're advising against travel, and they're assessing possibly closing borders in the next couple of weeks as this story elapses. And hopefully I don't get locked into the United States, because I'm trying to get out of here because I have to end my rent and get out of here. I can't afford it anymore, and I don't want to be locked in and homeless. But carrying on, as the Zero Hedge article says, Italy reports largest jump in deaths. Disney halts production on all live action films. Virus updates. And as the latest update says, with President Trump more than 20 minutes late for his 3 p.m. presser, of course I have to add that, intended to restore confidence in the markets and the public, an anonymous source reports from the Daily Beast is claiming that Ivanka Trump worked from home on Friday after interacting with an Australian official who was later diagnosed with the coronavirus. And it shows a tweet from the Daily Beast that shows, I think, one of these people that she was dealing with. And then the other update says, while we await President Trump's big announcement, looks like we're just getting some bad news out of New Jersey after New York Governor Cuomo declared that he would be keeping schools open, especially in NYC. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy announced 50 new confirmed cases and said that he would most likely be closing all schools in the state, following in the footsteps of at least 5 other states. That's actually not bad news. Closing schools, public schools, and not indoctrinating kids is a good thing. But I want to get to a news story in the next article here that really should concern everyone, which is this out of CNBC. Bill Gates leaves Microsoft board. And as the article goes into, if Tim could get it up on the screen here, it says,
I was getting an ad blocker that was blocking this article, so I'm trying to get it up on the fly right now.
Well, anyway, what it's basically saying while he's working on that is Microsoft announced on Friday that Bill Gates is leaving the board. Gates is also stepping down from his position on the board of Berkshire Hathaway. And this is just below the picture, Tim. And I quote, I have made the decision to step down from both of the public boards on which I serve, Microsoft and Berkshire Hathaway, to dedicate more time, and this is the most important part, to philanthropic priorities, including global health and development, education, and my increasing engagement in tackling climate change, Gates said on LinkedIn. And I quote, the leadership at the Berkshire companies and Microsoft has never been stronger, so the time is right to take this step. With respect to Microsoft, stepping down from the board in no way means stepping away from the company, Gates said. Microsoft will always be an important part of my life's work, and I will continue to be engaged with Satya and the technical leadership to help shape the vision and achieve the company's ambitious goals. I feel more optimistic than ever about the progress the company is making and how it can continue to benefit the world. And of course, he co-founded in 1975. And I have to just add, what really worries me about this essentially is that Bill Gates is so heavily involved in vaccines. Does anyone see the connection here that he's stepping down from Microsoft and is now talking about just focusing on his priorities of global health, that i.e. vaccines, and then obviously climate change? That tells me that, I mean, perfect timing for him to get in on the ground floor of possibly coronavirus, all that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit concerned about this. Tim, what do you think about this latest development? Because I feel like there's a bit more to the story than we're hearing here, because Bill Gates leaving Microsoft is a huge news story, but at this time of all times, not just as the stock market crashes, which we'll get into more later, but also as coronavirus is exploding. What do you think?
Well, this, sort of reminds me of when Bill Gates was talking about, let me pull this up on screen. I don't know if I can actually play this for, fair use to, but I'm just
Yeah,
going
you
to leave it up.
definitely can't.
I'm not going to play it. So on screen, it's sort of like a TED Talk type deal. And in this talk, Bill Gates is saying, actually, here's the equation. So P is for people. Here he is. He's laughing about, everyone's laughing about this. And what he's saying is, he goes, this isn't like you've got a 10-foot bridge and an 11-foot tall truck, and you just need to have the truck get, a foot and a half lower or make the bridge a little bit taller. This is, you need to get CO2 down to 0. And so then he chuckles with the crowd. He goes, and one of the equations is P for people. And everyone's like, ha, ha, ha. And all their little sycophant, liberal, fake liberal laughs that they got going on there, basically saying we need to bring human population down to 0. And then he goes on to say, if we do a good job with I don't know the exact order, it's been a long time since I've seen this. If we do a good job with the food, the vaccines, and the healthcare system, maybe we can reduce the population. I forgot what he said, like 10% or X amount of billion of people. But this is him. I mean, it sounds like conspiracy theorist type stuff. Here it is. You guys can go watch the video. Just all you have to do is search engine Bill Gates admits vaccines for population control. Boom, there you go. And so,
yeah, this is a concern to me because obviously we know about what happened in India years ago with Bill Gates vaccines, which I think affected something like 48 million people negatively. And look, you can be on any side of the fence with vaccines. I don't really care as long as it's not being forced on me or on children or anything like that. With that said, he's a very nefarious individual. He's been talking about depopulation for a long time, and now we see this massive depopulator, which is coronavirus. And again, I'm going to go into the science of this in a bit, but this just seems perfect. It seems so beneficial for Bill Gates to be stepping down from Microsoft and getting involved in this. Now, I want to make a point here. 1 billion people, around 1 billion people a year, get the flu, and if 1 billion people get the flu, and 0.1% of them die, and even less from H1N1, people need to stop comparing the flu to the coronavirus. It's not the same. The coronavirus has just started spreading and is more easily able to spread and kills 3.7% to as high as 6% in some cases. And there's been countries that have been pushing it even higher, the percentage, depending on the health, depending on the age of the populace, and stuff like that, including obesity and asthma and that kind of stuff. But I want to point out that if we're talking about 1 billion people getting the coronavirus, then that's tens of millions of people that could potentially die. Now, I'm not trying to fearmonger. This is just a fact. Let's stick to the statistics here. Is it being weaponized? Absolutely. I have no doubt that this is being weaponized. I have no doubt that this was man-made and controlled. I am one of those conspiracy theorist crazy people because I've looked at history and I've seen them do this enough times at this point to go, you know what? Obviously, Tim, obviously, we are dealing with something that could very well take out a lot of the population and be used as a way to bring in martial law, as we're seeing as of today with the national state of emergency, and of course, bring in people into a kind of a situation of complete subservience and bowing down to the state and begging them to help them out of desperation and fear. But again, there's a fear. And then there's a spread of a real pandemic, and then there's a government coming in. It's not as black and white as just saying it's only fear mongering or we're all going to die. It goes down the line here. I've met some people that are scared, less over this, and they're like stocking up and they're hiding on their house and they're not leaving. I don't think that's necessarily for people at like 25. You're muted. You're muted.
And they wouldn't need any toilet paper if they were scared, what list. So that's another thing. So
yeah, I know. Oh my God. Anyway, well, you'll be using your money real soon. But apparently coronavirus sits on the money. Anyway, that's why they're going cashless with this stuff. But I mean, the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people that are scared and hiding in their home. And then there's those that are actually, they're saying nothing's going to happen to me. And most people in their 20s, nothing will likely actually happen to them. I think that we need to focus on the stats and be mathematical about this and be scientific about this. We need to focus on the realities and not, become, an inferior populace is a subservient populace. And I'm scared. My biggest fear is that people will bow down to the state in a way that we've never seen in recent years. And I think we're already seeing that with the national state of emergency. I think we're already seeing that with the martial laws declared everywhere. We're going to go into that more and go into more of these articles in a moment. But I just want to mention most people in their 20s are going to be fine. But with that said, we could be carriers. So we should be very careful about disinfecting, and we should not bow down to the state no matter what happens. And we should not allow these borders to be closed closed to the point where you're not allowed to move from one state to another. They're talking about not allowing people out of each state. And they're just using this at this point, this actual pandemic that could kill a lot of people and could be part of a eugenics program. They're using this at this point to control the populace more. And I think we're seeing the end game that we've been warning about for so incredibly long playing out right in front of us, right before our eyes. It is scary. We need to have solutions, and we'll go into those solutions soon. But I want to get into the next article from Fox 5 Vegas. If you could get that up on the screen there, Tim, it is, as it goes into, it says, Governor Sisolak declares a state of emergency to open up resources to fight COVID-19. Wrong article there, Tim. One before that.
There we go.
Fox
sounds
5.
Sounds like some sort of disease. Sisolak.
Yeah. So basically, last night, Governor Sisolak in Nevada declared a state of emergency, and I'm a little bit concerned about that because there could be issues with me even leaving the state. This suspends the Constitution, just like the national state of emergency, and could lead to a lot of abusive issues stemming from the government. As the article goes into, Governor Steve Sisolak issued a declaration of emergency in a press conference Thursday night, not to stoke fear, he said, but to open access to resources for the state of Nevada. Resources as in power, guys. And I quote, "This is not reason to panic," Sisolak noted. This emergency declaration opens an emergency response team to coordinate efforts in response to COVID-19. And that's always very vague, as per usual. And obviously, Las Vegas has been hit really hard. Going to the next article here, it says Vegas Strip casino operator closes clubs citing coronavirus. One Nevada casino company is closing clubs, spas, salons, and gyms, and another plans to install temperature scanning devices at entrance in bids to stem the spread of the new coronavirus. And I'm telling you right here and right now, guys, that once this pandemic ends, if it ends anytime at all soon, this equipment is going to stay in place. They're going to keep equipment in place with facial recognition. They're going to keep equipment in place to check your temperature. They're going to keep this kind of stuff in place. Of course they will. I mean, they're already talking about leaving all the stuff that they put in the streets in China up and running after coronavirus. And that's another major concern of mine. And I talked to a waitress today in Las Vegas, and I asked, how's the business going? And she said, it's dead. It's dead. It's like there's no one's coming in. And she's saying it's scary because people are getting laid off left and right. Millions of jobs can be lost across the country because of this. Millions. I'm honestly, it's probably tens of millions. I mean, the potential here is huge because we're talking about entire grocery stores maybe getting shut down right away. Smith's announced today that they're cutting hours dramatically. And if they're cutting hours dramatically and they're moving in the direction of closing the stores completely, then people without food are going to be in trouble. And I don't want to lead to more panic buying here because a lot of the panic buying is absolutely irrational and stupid because they're buying toilet paper instead of food. But I mean, if you're not stocked up on some food, what are you guys going to do? Are you prepared? Is your family prepared? And then, I mean, actually, before we go into the next one, Tim, is your family prepared?
Well, Josh, actually, it's funny. I am sitting on some Hillary Clinton toilet paper over here, so I guess we are prepared. And we've got a big box of toilet paper that came in to supplement the other big box. And actually, you guys are probably gonna laugh, but I actually ordered for like $30 on Amazon, like a actual like bidet. So I'm like, instead of having toilet paper, this would be a much better solution, except I'm not very handy, so I'm smart with all the financial stuff, but all I ended up doing is breaking my toilet and not actually fixing it. But yeah, I've got food. I've had food for years. Actually, this N95 mask, this is probably 4 or 5 years old. I had a whole box of these from several years ago.
Won't help you much. Those things only really help if you're the one that's sick, but
this is like one of the legit N95, like as high up almost masks as you can get. But the thing is, I got this years ago when there wasn't a panic, and it was like maybe $5 for an entire box of it, and got hazmat and everything. Where now, I don't know what they're going for now, but I don't have to worry about it because I already had it. I already had a couple months of food. Now I just bought actually some more meal replacement drinks that I usually drink every day anyways. So now I was thinking, okay, well, if I drink this anyways, it's not like it's going to go bad. So why don't I just buy a couple months worth of it? If I don't there's no pandemic, I'm going to use it anyways.
Yeah,
So
of
just
course.
being
Well,
smart.
it's the same thing that, you know, I've been trying to say on WAM for the last, I guess, 7-8 years now, is that it's better to be overprepared than underprepared. People got tired of me saying it's better to be overprepared than underprepared. And people just kind of, most people, I would say, like, seriously, I get these comments all the time. You're fear mongering. It's crazy. And I'm like, why is it bad to prepare for the worst and hope for the best? I mean, we knew that something like this was eventually going to happen. It's just, we're living in a really strange reality right now. I mean, I don't even know how to put words to it to a certain extent, because I have to admit, I'm a little bit worried. I'm worried. I'm mostly worried about the state, worried about the government. I'm
Yeah, and
worried
we
about.
actually just canceled. I was supposed to be going to California tomorrow, heading to Legoland, but then I'm telling my wife, I'm like, I can't think of a worse place to be than a place where people flying from around the country to go touch a bunch of stuff with kids who are putting their hands over their faces. So
Oh, I
normally, I
know.
mean, I wouldn't walk around scared, but I feel like Legoland is
It's a petri dish.
yeah, and that's actually not even closed yet. So a lot of everything else is closed, but the Legoland in California specifically, last time I checked, is still not closed. But we're not going now. So I mean, that's I guess some more economic activity that's not going to be
Well,
had.
Tim, there's a Legoland in Malaysia next to Singapore. It's like the flights right now are so insanely cheap. You might spend almost just as much money flying to Malaysia if you really want to go to Legoland. Just saying.
I really did not want to go to Legoland to begin with. This was just one of the
Really?
things that we got to
Yeah,
do.
I wouldn't. I don't blame you. I don't even know why they make those places. It's
And just so
stupid, but-
people know, I think John Snyson will be joining us shortly at some point here. So
Okay, so John will be probably joining us shortly, and in time too, because we're going to be getting into the stock market shortly. Oh, look who just joined us sideways on the screen. John is currently connecting to our live stream. John, you're sideways.
Oh, here, hold on. Sorry, guys. There we go.
There we go. All right. Well, John, you joined us just in time. You are so white.
Like literally right as I said, and John's gonna be joining us, you know, momentarily, and then like boom, 2 seconds later, here's John Snyson is sitting sideways.
I read your mind.
Well, we were just about to start talking about money, but right now I'm just kind of going into some of the factors that, like, I've never seen anything like this in history. This is such a crazy, crazy, crazy time to be alive. I mean, honestly, we've all known that something like this was going to happen eventually, but it's gotten to a point where I'm actually starting to get worried. And I recently wrote on Facebook, I haven't actually felt fear since I was in a minefield in Africa last year. We were going through a minefield, and then something clicked in my head. I think I went a little crazy, and I suddenly just stopped feeling fear after that. Like, I literally, nothing would scare me unless someone like jumped out at me or something. So I mean, I'm starting to really start feeling that again, and it's not a good feeling, because there's like, everyone I've talked to seems scared. I had an Uber driver earlier because I had to get the transmission on my truck fixed because there's a recall, and I bring it in early this morning, and I had to take an Uber back, and the guy's just like, he's almost shaking, and he's from Iran, he said, and his family is all affected, and there's people in his family that are sick in Iran, and he's terrified. He thinks his parents are going to die. And then on top of that, he's like, I can't really afford to stop doing Uber right now, but I don't really want to be in contact with so many people. And then all these restaurants are talking about shutting down. Grocery stores are talking about shutting down. I'm really concerned about where this goes, not just for myself, but for the average person going into this, because this is not going to end up well for a lot of people that are not prepared. John, what do you think about the level of preparedness among people right now?
Buy your toilet paper. Sorry. No,
John, I got some. I dug this out. Somebody gave me some Hillary Clinton toilet paper years ago, and during the live stream, I left Josh. I didn't know. Hopefully Josh wasn't going to kick it to me, and I was able to find the Hillary Clinton TP.
How many do you have of those? Do you use those on a regular basis, Tim?
Oh, I have it. It's still unopened, so maybe we can put this on eBay. But it's good. You know.
Oh yeah, mark it up, dude. Sell it for like $100. Someone will buy it.
Yeah, I've got the initials TP, so at least it's the only time.
Well, I actually do want to add, though, before we go back to John, is that there have been a lot of people saying, why don't we just buy things off Amazon? Amazon basically ran out of toilet paper as of last night, and the only toilet paper I could find on Amazon was Trump novelty toilet paper. So,
which now they're out of that too. Someone just texted me that they're out of that. It's so funny that you had mentioned that.
Hit the like button, guys. John, what do you think of this insanity and how it's going to affect the people that are just unfortunately way too dependent?
No, this is crazy. Actually, I'm starting to feel like I was just in the store just shopping. Actually, that's why I'm late now. And I got a very weird feeling. I never really had that before, but I had a very weird feeling of just the energy in the building itself. And
is that because
like
you're in the women's lingerie section, or just because
that's not the kind of weird feeling you want to be telling the audience, John.
Oh God. No, but it's interesting. Actually, I've been talking to my family over in Norway, and they have like complete shutdown. Of course, they have the grocery stores and the pharmacies open, but everything else is basically shut down. My mom is still actually working because she's a cleaner, so she's got to clean up all the COVID-19 everywhere, I guess. And Norway just hit like 900 something cases today, so they're about to hit 1,000. They're actually the only ones, except for I think it's Italy at the top, and then Norway per capita that are infected. So even in Sweden right now, my sister, I was talking to her today in Malmö, where she is. They actually are panicking in the stores. Like people are literally like getting aggressive and angry over there. And I guess people. This is the problem. Like people are not prepared for anything today. We're heavily dependent on just going out and shopping, every 2 or 3 days because we need something, and nobody has anything laying around extras. I've my freeze-dried food that I have for a month's supply at least, and then I have at least another two, I would say a month and a half of other food in the house. It just makes common sense. You never know what could happen. There could be a terrible natural disaster like a meteorite impact, something like that. But
Right.
What's happening right now is just unprecedented. And you see in the panic also entail into the markets. We had so many bailouts today. Norway, like Sweden, Denmark, the EU. I was listening to the head of the EU directly. They are basically bailing out everybody. They're creating an emergency fund in the European Union right now. For everybody that needs money that are affected in any. Josh, you have COVID now, or are you still?
Man, I've been coughing for like a month and a half now, and everyone thinks I have COVID-19. Yeah, I mean, and obviously with a travel ban from Europe, which is absolutely crazy, and then Trudeau talking about closing the borders in Canada,
and he probably will. He's insane. So
yeah, well, oh my God, it's just terrible. And it's interesting because you mentioned that your mom's a cleaner. My mom's a cleaner at a hospital. She can't deliver any information to me. She's sworn to secrecy on this stuff, but she has to clean all that kind of stuff, which makes me very concerned because she has to be around coronavirus, like literally up front. She has to be the one that disinfects and cleans this stuff, and it scares the hell out of me. And I mean, I don't know, man. It's definitely something that people are passing off as nothing, and I really think people have to start acknowledging the fact that this isn't the flu. It's much worse. But on top of that, it's what the government does, which is the most scary part of this.
That's exactly what I'm afraid of here. Is the government reactions. Actually, my family over here, everybody was going to leave to Hawaii. They're canceling their vacation. They had a family meeting right now, canceling the whole 2-week vacation to Hawaii right now. And it's a huge financial hit to everybody. But they basically are saying, well, if idiot Trudeau is going to close the borders on us,
they'll get stuck in Hawaii. It'll be terrible.
Without money potentially for some
yeah,
people,
that's
right?
true. Well, and that's the thing too, that people talking about potential bank runs and
freezes. What could happen, right, over the next couple of months? Just look at right now the craziness. Like we were down 9.99%, and today, Tim, we're up again 9.71 or whatever it was.
So that's what we're going to get into very shortly here, John. I want to finish up with the Corona stuff first, because the thing is, I know that feeling that you're talking about going through a grocery store. It's almost like an emotional feeling. Like, it's not like you're going to start like crying or anything, but you're walking through the store and you're just seeing the energy. You feel the energy. Shelves are empty. You know that you're witnessing something historic. You know that what you're seeing has not happened in recent days.
Gives you goosebumps for sure.
Even in like World War II, a lot like these major sports games and stuff continued. I mean, it's crazy the level of panic at this point. The NHL, NBA, MLB, soccer, FIFA,
basically any major
Formula One
sporting event. Yeah,
Formula One. Okay, all right, we got the Formula One guy.
Yeah,
here.
Formula One practice was supposed to start today. It's the only thing I watched, and they're done. And the other thing I watched would be March Madness, which I don't. My team wasn't going to make it anyways. But
hey, now we can just watch government announcements on CBS or
C-SPAN.
Yes,
Let's watch C-SPAN all day. No, I mean that's cancer, that's poison. But I mean, speaking of poison, though, there's a lot of talk about this being man-made and it being a bioweapon, and obviously Iranian government officials are accusing the U.S. of spreading this. Chinese government officials are accusing the U.S. of spreading this, and the U.S. Many people within the U.S. senators, like Tom Cotton, I believe his name was, is accusing China of spreading this. I think that this is a collaboration effort. I think multiple countries are spreading this. I know that I have no absolute evidence of this, but who benefits cui bono? The economy doesn't. The people don't. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of government officials that stand to gain a lot from this, especially with the control complex that they can grow around this and martial law, which was essentially declared today in the United States.
Yeah, well, Josh, what's interesting here is let's look at it from a point of China spreading it. Okay, so like China, of course, they had massive insurrection in Hong Kong, and China started to really get a lot of people abroad there. They're starting to protest because of the massive totalitarianism that they're going into. So that was kind of convenient. But then it spread to countries like Italy. France is massively, inundated, and those are countries that had huge insurrections. Hong Kong, of course, and others. So it was a very convenient time that it came in, and basically now they're banning those gatherings and putting in. Actually, now it's legal to come after them. And it's pretty I don't know, like you just get a feeling that something is not quite right with this virus the way it came out.
Nothing's right about it. It came from originally the first records of it are in the Netherlands and then in Winnipeg, Canada after that. And then after that in Wuhan, China. But I do want to note that people are saying that it's fear mongering. The truth is not fear mongering. These are facts. These are things that are happening. And we are reporting the news in an alternative way, unlike the mainstream media, which is fear mongering and then giving no solutions and telling everyone to scream in the streets and run for cover. We are saying the facts, and this is the news, and we need to talk about the news. And sometimes the news is scary, and it depends on how prepared you are, which is why for years we have been trying to get people to prepare. But I want to give a big shout out to Rika, the hopeful voluntarist, who sent $5 in the super chat on YouTube and wrote, invest in a regional field guide for your local wild edible plants. The earth is already an abundant produce section. Have no fear. And I agree, there are a lot of options for most of us that have studied this kind of stuff.
It's midwinter.
Yeah, well, it's winter up north. Try some vertical farming, but yeah, you guys suck. So too bad for you. But I mean, and I'm in a desert. But with that said, I mean, there are a lot of options as far as that goes. But most people, like 99% of people, have no idea how to farm, no idea how to harvest, no idea how to find food and water and stuff, naturally speaking, outside of rain. So I mean, we got to be realistic as well for the average person. But obviously,
I learned how to grow food in the desert about 4 or 5 years ago, where I have this tower garden system where it's all self-contained. It uses about 98% less water than traditional methods. But then when my kids were born, and they all started taking all the fruit off of it, my puppy was trying to take it. So now that my kids are a little bit older, maybe I can get it revamped. But yeah, the main reason I wanted to do that was, just knowing how to do it in case I really had to. And also I thought maybe weed would get legalized by now in Arizona, but that didn't happen. So
right. And I do want to mention It's My World wrote on the chat, Corona virus will disappear as fast as it started. Proof, stop listening to false media. The news controls the narrative. And while I agree, it could happen. That could be the case. It could disappear as fast as it came. But also, what I'm looking at right now is a massive ramping up of government, and the coronavirus spreads more easily and faster than the flu and kills like 30 to 60 times more people than the flu. So that's concerning to me. Obviously, it's a good thing that it barely affects children, but many epidemiologists that are far more professionals than any of us here are saying that we're looking at a 2%. We're only about 2 to 5% into the pandemic so far. And I mean, honestly, there's a lot that it could spread. Going into summer sounds like a good thing in many cases, but then we see the spread in Singapore and in Australia, especially Australia, where that kind of debunks that. Now, obviously, Australia is going into winter in the next few months.
So they're getting less sun,
Yeah, but with that said,
Vitamin
it's
D.
still extremely hot there, and they're still getting there's still a huge outbreak there. So we have to just focus on, first of all, being healthy, washing our hands, being safe, and not spreading it to older people, overweight people, people with asthma, and people with autoimmune diseases. But with that said, we also I'm not too afraid for my own self. Like I'm 25 years old. If I get coronavirus, I'm sure I'll be fine. But it's about spreading it, and also, most importantly, like I said before, how the government reacts. But I'm going to jump into more articles here. I hit that like button, guys. I really appreciate everyone joining us. And again, those super chats make a big difference. Again, big shout out to Rika, the hopeful voluntarist, who's a huge supporter, always commenting on our videos, always watching, and I really appreciate her. I'm gonna jump ahead to let's see. Let's go to Joe Biden's first point of Joe Biden's COVID-19 action plan. This is kind of funny. So he says first point of Joe Biden's COVID-19 action plan is to stop racism. As the article goes into this, it says the very first point of Joe Biden's plan to stop the spread of coronavirus in the United States highlights the need to stop acts of racism.
Coming from the guy who authored the '94 crime bill, so I mean that's pretty cute.
Yeah. I could go. I'm not. Oh my God, dementia. As it continues, it says because when dealing with a global pandemic, preventing people's feelings from being hurt is surely of the utmost importance. In the first section of Biden's plan, restoring trust, credibility, and common purpose, curbing misinformation, and stopping xenophobia are listed as key goals. And I quote, stop the political theater and willful misinformation that has heightened confusion.
What about touching and sniffing? What do you say about touching and sniffing?
Seriously, don't touch faces, especially other people's faces. But anyway, that has heightened confusion and discrimination, states the plan, adding that this communication is essential to combating the dangerous epidemic of fear, chaos, and stigmatization that can overtake communities faster than the virus. You horse-faced pony soldiers, or dog-faced pony soldiers, that's what it was. Acts of racism and xenophobia against the Asian American and Pacific Islander community must not be tolerated, according to the plan. Well, at this point, it's spread far away from just the Asian community. I do want to get on to some of the economics articles. Let's go into the NPR article, Tim, that says Dow soars nearly 2,000 points in rebound from biggest drop since 1987. And by the way, if you look at the Dow charts, at the end of the day, while there was a big beginning to the day, we did see a drop at one point into the negative, but then it bounced. Obviously the Fed was pumping. Like it was just a ridiculous amount. I've never 9.36% or something like that of a pump right at the end of the day, ending off Friday.
Hey, PPT, Team PPT, Josh.
Only imagine how Monday is going to look. But going into the article out of NPR, as it says, it was lucky Friday the 13th for Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average soared 1,985 points, more than 9% on the same day President Trump declared a national emergency to deal with the coronavirus pandemic. It closed at 23,185. The S&P 500 index also jumped more than 9%, closing at 2,711. The rebound comes just one day after the blue chip stock index posted its biggest drop since the Black Monday crash of 1987. Trump said the emergency declaration would free up as much as $50 billion for state and local governments to deal with the coronavirus. He also asked every state to set up emergency operation centers. Investors are hopeful as Congress appears to be getting closer to passing a measure to help cushion the blow of the coronavirus pandemic, which has jammed up or shut down many parts of the U.S. economy. The European Commission announced several economic measures as well, and the Federal Reserve and the European central banks are taking aggressive steps to help banks and other businesses. And yesterday when we reported, it was about 1.5 trillion. I'm pretty sure it's moving up from there in pumps. It's massive market manipulation. It's not real, folks. I keep getting people saying, well, look, it's all good now. It's bouncing up. It's skyrocketing. This is like the craziest move I've ever seen. Guys, it's
still down 20%.
Have we learned anything from history? John, Tim, I don't know. One of you guys go. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Tim, you go first.
I was going to say you go first. So now I guess.
No, you go first. I'm going with Tim.
All right.
I'll pick.
So we're talking about what's going on in the market. So, I mean, we had a $1.5 trillion stimulus program. And then on top of that, I think the New York Fed actually announced another $33 billion stimulus program that was in addition, where they're going to start buying 30-year treasuries I mean, I think they even announced they might just buy them outright, because what they were doing before is they were letting the banks, essentially the banks were front running them. So they would then, the treasury would give money to the banks. Then the banks would then, that money would settle in a day or two. And then the Fed would come in and buy that money buy those bonds for a little bit more than what they paid for them a few days before. So it's a stealth bailout of the big mega banks. And it's something that is on nobody's radar. And so I think if you add everything up now, I mean, I think it might even be over 2 trillion of what all the stimulus is. And guess what? It's not even working. This problem is not going to be solved by more debt. So sorry, Jim Cramer, which Jim Cramer was on air the other day saying, we need to print our way out of this. Yeah, print our way. Yeah, get ourselves out of a debt problem by giving ourselves more debt. Behind me, it says King's Ransom. That is to denotate the fact that this money is not our money. This is the money of the crown right now. So our money, I mean, and then this is an analogy I heard from somebody at AnarchoVegas. Imagine if you have 3 people on an island. That's all the people that exist on an island. You have 3 people. One of them is a banker. Let's say one of them is a baker, and the other one's let's say a carpenter. And let's say the carpenter wants to go take out money to go build his own carpentry shop. So he goes to the banker. The banker then lends that money out of thin air, $100. It's the only $100 that exists on the island, but there's interest on it. So at the end of year 1, let's say it's a 1-year loan, and he owes the carpenter owes $104. Well, how do you pay back $104 if $100 only exists on the island? It's a mathematical impossibility, and essentially the current system we have is high-tech slavery. Yeah. So if you're advocating fixing the system, you don't know how the system works. The system is designed to make you a slave. It's designed to make you poor. That's not to say that, you should just throw your hands up and say, oh, woe was me, I'm going to be poor, because I think I'm going to make out of it. I mean, maybe I can sell this Hillary Clinton teepee for some money, but if worse comes to worse, this system is designed to make you a slave.
Tim. Sorry.
Yeah, this system is designed to siphon money out of you. It's not about, they don't need our tax money. They want to control us. They want to make sure that they take money from some people, give it to others. They don't want to give us a payroll tax cut because they want to give the tax money to people that aren't working. And so they don't want to give the tax money back of your own, have less
the voters
stolen from you.
Voters, Tim, people that will vote.
Well, John, do you think we're going to see any mass inflation coming soon? I know that you were talking yesterday about how, the money being pumped into the stock market is unlikely to cause a lot of inflation, but
no, it has caused a lot of inflation. It's massive amount of inflation in stock markets and massive amounts of inflation in real estate. That's where the inflation has gone. When you look at, for example, in Vancouver or Toronto, prices are up over like 10 years. Almost like 300% some places. And that is actual real inflation that has come from money that have been, shoved into that market. So there is mass amounts of inflation out there. And of course, the inflation is real, but it's locked up right now until the point where you get the sell-off of people actually like pull that money out and start spending it into the economy. When that happens, and that's why you see it in Canada, because we had a huge peak actually. You saw in Canada that we had the peak in real estate, and then people start selling off, and then you start to see inflation jump up quite a bit. Actually, I talked to somebody I was doing renovations for my in-laws in their basement, and we were buying some electrical stuff, and the guy was telling me, I was like, we're raising prices on a monthly basis here. And so that just tells me that, money is slowly trickling, like this money that they're printing on mass scale, Josh, is not just like coming in right into the economy. It's slowly trickling into the economy. And as it trickles in, that creates real inflation in real products and services, of course. So I don't predict any hyperinflation yet, because what we'll see first, we'll see mass deflation. And we're there now where we have, sell-offs, but then on top of that, you have the baby boomers that are really starting to retire right now. So they will, have a massive deflationary pressure on the real economy, on the currency, because they want to sell. But who's going to buy that? Well, the only buyer left would be the Federal Reserve, Norges Bank, it would be Bank of Canada, Bank of England, Bank of Japan. Well, Bank of Japan has actually bought a whole bunch of crap already, and they're buying ETFs on a weekly basis. So I think what we're going to see is central banks are going to come in when this really start to hit the fan really badly. And people are starting to see that, this is not going to recover. We actually had a massive bubble that the coronavirus actually pricked. And then they're going to be like, oh, shit, we're in some deep trouble here. and then you're going to see a huge, exodus out of the markets, and then you're going to see the central banks coming in, buying stocks, buying ETFs, buying houses, because they would have to in order to prop up the markets. They would buy, well, almost any kind of asset, except for probably gold or crypto. But I think, maybe cryptocurrencies, not for the big ones, of course, because they would never want any cryptocurrencies to
By
have
the
any
way, what a
value.
bloodbath
But
in
you might
crypto.
see some rogue central banks out there actually adding it onto their balance sheets. I think that's possible throughout this coming, just the apocalypse that is, upon us. It's just mass amounts of debt. Corporate debt is just like all over the place, right? And we are just at peak. I've been saying this for a while, and Tim and Josh has said as well. We call it peak debt, where people are so indebted that we're at the point. Tim, remember he were doing that very simple example of the guy borrowing $100, having to pay back 110. We are at that point where we there's everybody has lent money, but there's no more money to be borrowed because nobody can afford it anymore, because there's not enough salaries to pay off all these loans out there. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a huge debt collapse in the corporates, personal debt. Everything is just going to unravel here. And I don't think it's going to start right away, but I think it is really starting to unfold there, because those highs, ups, like massive ups and downs that we saw just the 2 days now, is a huge sign of what is to come, because we had in 2008 as well, we had mass amounts of like just huge volatility, up and down moves. So I think we're really entering into this crisis head on here without knowing it, or nobody's really talking about it other than some few Wall Street guys that knows what's going on.
Yeah, and Tim, I sent you a couple articles. If you're able to go to Zero Hedge, one of my favorites, and go to the article that says China quietly filling U.S. vacuum in the Philippines. This is pretty interesting because, we've been long reporting on the obvious mapping out of the New World Order coming from China, and how China is slowly trying to take over the world. This article I feel like this makes sense at this point if China were to have unleashed this virus, because they are sneakily already claiming that the coronavirus is basically dead for the most part in China as of today.
It's insane.
It's ridiculous, which it obviously isn't. But with that said, I'm seeing this news story that says China quietly filling U.S. vacuum in the Philippines. And as the article says, President Rodrigo Duterte's cancellation of key strategic pact with U.S. has opened the way for Chinese infiltration. And as it says, as President Rodrigo Duterte moves to boot U.S. troops from Philippine soil through the cancellation of a key defense pact, China's People's Liberation Army is quietly moving in to take their place. Duterte's recent decision to abrogate the Visiting Forces Agreement, which allowed the U.S. to rotate troops and position equipment in the country, is opening the way for China to solidify its competing strategic position in the country. That's at least according to early findings of investigation into China's undercover and illicit activities, ranging reputedly from espionage to surveillance to money laundering, now being spearheaded by Philippine Senator Richard Gordon. Those probes have included scrutiny of hundreds of thousands of Chinese citizens now employed in the burgeoning online casino sector, known locally as Philippine offshore gaming operations, many of which are clustered close to key military camps and strategic bases in Manila, the national capital. Gordon has claimed that the Pogos have been infiltrated by PLA soldiers for intelligence gatherings and other activities. Those claims were validated when two card-carrying PLA members attached to a Pogo were arrested in a shooting incident in Manila late last month. But I feel like there's this slow money in bold. It says down here, the money, according to the whistleblower, is rolled inside a sheet of bond paper, similar to how the Philippine milk candy delicacy pastillas is packed, that the investigations claim has paved the way for so-called Chinese immersion missions by PLA members. I feel like China is trying to gain territory from the U.S., which honestly, no one wins whether the U.S. or China has a territory. But I think it's clear that not just economically, but physically and militarily, China is trying to gain a few feet up on the U.S. Government and are trying to take over. Now, this goes back a long ways. I mean, we remember, and we've talked about a billion times here at WHAM, how, Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong in the early 1970s and formed an alliance, leading to the Trilateral Commission under Zbigniew Brzezinski, under Jimmy Carter, and creating a technocratic superstate where they ally with China and give a bunch of power to China, give a bunch of, they basically allowed China to have a huge amount of control of the supply chain of the entire world. And basically this communist system that is allowing quasi crony capitalist entities to survive and it's basically a cross between fascism and communism. It's very strange. Now they're creating this massive technocratic state with the technology they have now, and with that they have social credit scores, they have facial recognition, and they have the cashless society, which is even bigger now. The coronavirus is a major issue in the news because they're demonetizing the currency, just as we said would happen. I mean, guys, we are getting to the point.
Demonizing. So we've been doing too much demonetization for YouTube, but they've been demonizing the currency.
Well, no, I mean they're taking money out of circulation in China, and it's leading to just more of the cashless society that we've been warning about, and with that, social credit scores and all that kind of stuff. And that's coming to a place near you soon with this martial law in effect, with the government's cracking down worldwide to apparently stop this virus, which is clearly allowing the government to have unbelievable powers over the populace. I think that the conspiracy here is set in stone and pretty obvious.
Well, yeah, I think something is going to happen there with all this martial laws and everything. Trump to be tested.
Great.
For what, herpes?
Maybe that's Hillary Clinton because she never goes away. Pressed by reporters, Trump says he will be tested for coronavirus. So apparently today, March 13th, Donald Trump on Friday reversed course and said he would get tested for the coronavirus days after he stood next to a Brazilian official who tested positive for the virus.
But there's a lot of fake news around this too, though, Tim, because the Brazilian prime minister was said to have been testing positive, but then they tested they released the full test and actually said he tested negative.
I just can't look at Josh, look at the BAM Facebook group post. Look at what's happening with Microsoft, please. This is
we talked about Bill Gates before you came on. Because it's interesting because Bill Gates, for those that aren't aware, Bill Gates left Microsoft, and it's interesting because he left Berkshire Hathaway at the same time, and his reasoning was in order to focus on philanthropic work, including the health field and climate change. Vaccine. And it's pretty obvious that he's moving hugely into vaccines because he sees an opportunity. This guy's obsessively been involved with the Bill and Linda Gates Society, and they've been pushing vaccines worldwide.
Well, just a couple of things that just came to my mind before I'm going to get into what you guys were talking about. Actually, the gold-silver ratio now is 104 something, which is beyond ridiculous. Huge historical highs. It's never been that high. So what we're seeing is silver is getting whacked because of the massive margin calls that was from yesterday. So things are really starting to unfold there. But what's more interesting is we're talking about Bill Gates, but look at all the other CEOs. I don't know, Tim, have you done a report yet, or you and Josh done a report on all the CEOs that are just magically getting off the bandwagon right now?
Yeah, tons of them since January have been.
Yeah, and then the head of JP Morgan as well, right? So what's interesting here is you've seen all these guys suddenly jumping up. And we know exactly kind of why well, this is my theory anyways. This is my conspiracy theory, is that they know what's coming. They know this corporate massive debt bubble that they created, which is, $10 trillion, which is just utterly insane, that they created. And they're preparing for it by getting away from, basically they're evacuating the burning house and barricading up the building so nobody else can get out.
Right. I do want to add that I think it was about February 2nd, 2020, China's central bank announced that they were going to inject 1.2 trillion yuan via reverse repos. I find it interesting. One guy mentioned in the chat here, let me find it here. Peter says, saying that China created and spread the virus on purpose is a bit far-fetched. I don't think so, because they've been known to spread viruses in the past. They've done it before. And on top of that, they announced that the reason Wuhan spread was because of an accidental leak. Originally, it was the market, right? It was the bats, it was the dogs, it was the cats, and all that kind of stuff. But then they said that many officials in China said that it was accidentally leaked from a Wuhan disease facility. And we have to remember that one of the biggest disease facilities and weaponized disease research centers in the world is in Wuhan, China, which, by the way, has a huge
Remember, you were talking about Winnipeg too, Josh.
Yeah. Well, of course, because the virus, the origins of the novel coronavirus started in the Netherlands, and then in 2015, it was being studied in a Winnipeg, Manitoba disease research lab at the University of Manitoba. And then one of the samples, I believe, went missing, and there's talk that a Chinese couple stole it and then ended up in Wuhan mysteriously in 2016. And then we see this outbreak in 2019. And I mean, yeah, it really hurt the economy in China. It caused dramatic damage to the Chinese economy and supply chain. But with that said, who did it hurt more? And it's starting to show signs of hurting basically the entire world at a rate that is going to actually, I believe, possibly put China in a good strategic position going forward.
I do have an article pulled up right now of all the major CEOs that have stepped down. So if I go sneak away to that real quick, we've got WeWork's Adam Newman stepped down.
Well, that was great.
Yeah, we knew that was happening. Nike's CEO stepped down. Juul CEO stepped down. So
I'd step down if I was the CEO of Juul too. I mean, man, the government has been rough on Juul lately.
Yeah, eBay, MetLife's CEO, Colgate Palmolive CEO, New York Post, Best Buy, Burlington Stores, Rite Aid, Warner Brothers, Mattress Firm, Bed Bath & Beyond, REI.
Are they all heading to New Zealand?
I don't know. Boingo Wireless, Mozilla, Guess, United Healthcare.
By the way, a lot of these companies are slowly going under right now, so it's just interesting. Especially, you mentioned a few of them. Bed Bath & Beyond has not been doing well in the last little while, and John and I have reported on it, I think, a couple times.
And then Blue Apron. I mean, what a joke of an IPO that was. About a year and a half ago. Kraft Heinz, PG&E. Yeah, they've had a pretty rough year to say the least. AutoNation, Care.com, Under Armour and Nike. Overstock, that was something else with Patrick Byrne.
Yeah, Patrick, that was a different issue.
Yeah. He's got a different issue.
Well, that was actually an intelligence issue, which was crazy. He was involved in some crazy shit there.
And I was talking about that interview about 4 days before that, like the interview really blew up with some of the inside baseball. Wells Fargo's CEO, McDonald's CEO, Gap, SoulCycle.
The McDonald's CEO just got replaced only a few years ago and completely turned the company into the ground because he started selling terrible healthy food, quote unquote healthy food. And then they realized people don't want to go to McDonald's to get a gourmet croissant with like some like lettuce stuff on it.
Yeah, now they've got this new like Mountain Dew that's like some sugar-free Mountain Dew. It's like no one who's having a big thing of Mountain Dew wants to have a sugar-free Mountain Dew. Like what? And then it's like, but there's also a diet Mountain Dew, so it really tricks you. Because I accidentally bought it like a week ago. Anyways, Expedia.
But this is crazy though. Look at it.
Alphabet too. Why is Alphabet? And why is Alphabet? That should be like number 1 on the list. Why is it?
Yeah, I know.
32
Tell me about it.
Yeah, who made this list? 33 is Expedia, United Airlines. Maybe their new one's stepping down. Who knows? The Gates Foundation. So the head of the Gates Foundation is stepping down, and then Steph Court. I don't
even know what that is. Yeah.
Boeing CEO. So yeah, and it's still. And what I'm speculating is that a lot of these guys, they all go to the same board meetings. The boards are all across, pollinated with everybody on them, and a lot of these people's compensation is tied.
They all got
to
Corona.
Options. A lot of their compensation is tied to options. And so if they were, let's say you get, 25,000 options that are each worth, $200 a piece, you're looking at massive paydays. But if you were to step down, maybe you can exercise it immediately. Hypothetically, I'm just speculating here. But if you were to hold on to them, let's say for a year, and you're still the CEO, and all of a sudden now the stock tanks and the stock is below the exercise price, now your $50 million is actually worth zero. And so they would rather have, a bird in the hand than potentially 2 in the bush or none in the bush. So that's my speculation of why this was going on, that they saw all this writing on the wall. They knew that they were just gaming the numbers by repatriating funds, boosting the stock prices, doing share buybacks, all this short-term steroids that Donald Trump has been advocating for. And to me, that's the dumbest thing he did, was try to extend this bubble, keep everything going, have all the sheep buy into what's going on, when all he did was, basically doing a lot of the same crap Obama was doing. And I like Donald Trump, especially compared to Hillary Clinton. I've got Hillary Clinton toilet paper. I don't have Donald Trump toilet paper. But but I got to call people out when they're doing bad things.
And I just don't agree with the notion of getting whipped once a day rather than twice. I just don't want to get whipped. And I mean, the issue here is this is absolute history. For those just tuning in, I mean, we saw a massive spike in the stock market today, just ridiculous. But it's not for the reasons that many might think. It's not like we're recovering here. This is actually terrible news because we're watching the Fed obviously manipulate, obviously pump. It's unprecedented, the level of pumping that we're watching take place in the stock market. Obviously, yesterday, the Fed announcing $1.5 trillion in
8 billion in where was it? It was 4 billion in Norway in repo, 8 billion in repo in Australia. Everybody's doing repo right now because all their banks are basically half screwed. So it's all a massive liquidity crisis. Remember back in Tim? Remember back in 2018 in December when Mnuchin had come out and said that there was no liquidity crisis. That was the first thing he said when he came out with a statement after the massive crash that we had at that time. We were crashed, what was it, like close to like 20%, but then he came out and said, there was no liquidity crisis. Well, why would you say that in the first place?
Exactly. That was the whole Christmas Eve massacre that was going on when the plunge protection team and everybody else came out. So here we got it up on screen. Actually, sorry, this was from just the other day, but I guess he says this again. Mnuchin says no need for intervention in markets due to coronavirus. So I mean, are they counting? And then literally the very next day they announced $1.5 trillion. The very next effing day they announced $1.5 trillion. I mean, no need for any intervention. And then 12 hours later.
Yeah. So what you got to do, Tim? Every time these bozos try to open their mouth and say something, do the complete opposite. That's what it is.
And also Jim Cramer. I do the opposite of Jim Cramer.
Yeah, well, I heard Mnuchin talking today. I was driving and I heard him on the radio talking. And what Mnuchin said was essentially that, we're having some issues with the stock market right now. Obviously, we're all feeling it. But long term, the U.S. is the best place to invest. And in 20 years from now, we'll be much higher. And I'm like, well, probably, yeah. But I mean, what that's totally besides the point right now. We are witnessing something that could seriously put millions of people out of work.
Years. Maybe like 5 years from now.
The old guard system is going to die, but there's always going to be people who want to invest in groups of stocks and stuff. I mean, it's a gambling game. A lot of people love it, and honestly, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just when it's manipulated and pumped up, and the speculation causes greed and all these kinds of problems.
Well, yeah, which it has, ever since 2008, there's just been mass amounts of manipulation, and there was some people stating actually there was some big financial advisors and guys that I know on Wall Street. They were saying that like these swings are just crazy right now, like they go so fast. And then I was like, hey, do you guys know, like since 2008 things have changed so drastically? We have almost 80% of stocks are high frequency traded. I think it's even more now. And so that's why you get this massive fast swings in seconds, and because all these algos are out there
and ETFs
in nanoseconds.
And everybody now are in the index funds, which John and I talked about this a few months ago. So what happened in 2008, I don't have the exact percentages up, but maybe I'm just making this up right now. It was maybe like 10% of all investor retail money was in index funds, and then mutual funds were much, much higher. Now that percentage is actually crossed. And again, I'm not looking at the exact numbers here, but now I'm willing to speculate it's probably like 50-60% are in index funds. So what I mean by index fund is, instead of buying, let's say, Apple stock, or instead of buying IBM or this or that or the other, what they do is you just buy the entire S&P 500. And so that's what a lot of people do. They've got large cap funds in their 401ks and their IRAs, whatever you guys got up in Canada, your RSPs, all that sort of stuff. And they just buy the index. But now what that happens is that accelerates the ramp up. However, when you start selling those indexes, it then greatly accelerates the ramp down too. And it's indiscriminate and it's across the board, and it's going to magnify these moves. And John and I were talking about this like 3 or 4 months ago. And now, boom. I mean, I think that's exactly what is going on here, is that you're seeing this massive amplification because everybody is in the index funds.
And I do want to go into another article here, Tim, if you could pull it up, regarding the Bank of Canada out of Zero Hedge, because I find this pretty interesting. And for the Canadian viewers numbers. I think this will be worth going
cut the
into. And
rates
by the way,
today to 0.75.
yeah, well, if anyone wants to hit that like button and send those super chats, we're gonna get into questions shortly. I'm sure
Yeah, okay,
not all of us. But I want to go into this article here. As it says, Bank of Canada announces emergency 50 basis points rate cut as FinMin unveils Canadian $10 billion support program. And as it says, after a day of relentless central bank interventions across Asia and Europe, which jumped the Atlantic this morning when the Fed announced not one, but 6 emergency QE POMOs. Moments ago, Canada joined the panic response when the Bank of Canada announced an emergency 50 basis points rate cut, lowering the overnight rate from 1.25% to 0.75%, generally in line with the market's expectations. According to the central bank, and I quote, this unscheduled rate decision is a proactive measure taken in light of the negative shocks to Canada's economy arising from the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent sharp drop in oil prices.
And the massive debt.
The Bank of Canada maintained its easing bias, stating that it stood ready to adjust monetary policy further if required when it dropped the reference in its January statement, which stated policy was at an appropriate level. In its policy statement, the bank said that while the economy had been operating close to potential with inflation at target, the virus is a material negative shock to the Canadian and global outlooks. Business activity in some regions has fallen sharply and supply chains have been disrupted, reflective in Canadian and commodities, the statement noted. The Bank of Canada also believes that as the virus spreads, business and consumer confidence will deteriorate further, which will depress activity. In light of all these developments, the central bank said the outlook was clearly weaker now than it was in January. John, what do you think of this 50 basis points rate cut?
I think they're getting close to negative. That's what I know. It was pretty obvious that it was coming. I think we're gonna see rates again. I think I said I forgot what we said when we did our podcast just a little while ago, Tim. But I think I said June or something, that I predict that we potentially will be in negative interest rate territory because of 0% interest rates. So I definitely think that that's where we're going. And of course, the pressure now on the debt in Canada as well. We got to remember that Canada has as much, zombie companies as the United States, which is just companies that are only paying interest on their debt. And who else is zombies then? Well, it's all the governments, because no governments are actually paying the principal on their debt, Josh. And so all the governments, all the provincial, all the state, everybody are zombies walking, dead, and nobody is willing to. And of course, like, there's a 28 or 30 something billion deficit right now in Canada. They just announced that budget, and so you're adding on top of that. There's I don't know. Like, all I can say is that I wrote a book on this back in 2015 called "Canada, the Greatest Economy in the World?" questioning all of these problems that we now see in just literally amplified, almost doubled soon of what it was when I warned about it, and you're just seeing it way worse. Look at over in Italy, which is in terrible shape. They suspended mortgage payments to the banks because people were so on the edge that they would just be like.
And they banned short selling too today as well.
Oh, in Italy.
Yeah.
Yes,
and they blame the entire stock market crash on Christine Lagarde. So.
And by the way, U.S. equity market has crashed below 2007 highs despite a massive surge on the Trump stimulus plan.
Well, we're going to see Italy exit soon from the EU. I don't see. They've been talking about it for a long time. This might be a reason. I think. Like, what's coming after?
I don't know, John, because Salvini was booted out and they replaced him with a very far leftist government compared to what it was before.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it would be a natural exit. The problem here is what I see is now the whole world is we kind of are starting to hit peak centralization of what was possible. They really wanted the one world government, and the World Health Organization is now pushing one world, global health martial law onto everyone. They really want that global government, but people did not want it. People do not want to be controlled. So what we're seeing is, I think, the problem here is when you print all this money into the world, we're going to see a lot of countries being really pissed off and potentially pissed off enough to launch wars on others. And it could be as much as, within Europe, you could see it everywhere. Wars breaking out between countries because they've just been stretched thin by all this debt, by all these banksters, filling everybody up, making them slaves, as Tim says. And somebody's just going to break mentally and go crazy because of this, massive bubble that they created. And people in countries are going to be massively crazy and angry because what have happened. And they're going to blame someone. They're going to blame, Germany, or they're going to blame the United States. They're going to blame China, whoever they want. But everybody's blaming everybody. And suddenly you have a place where we have, the trade wars. It's funny. Jim Rickards, the CIA asset, he was talking about, currency wars, trade wars, then hot wars. And, we had our trade wars that are, really intensified. And then now this virus is kind of just like throwing a wrench into everything. But then everybody's blaming everybody for, being the perpetrator or everything here. And I think, currency printing in general creates wars throughout history. And we got to be really, really careful who we're voting into office, who bozos you want to lead the countries, because you're going to get morons and psychopaths in there that will launch wars or blame others, like how Hitler.
That's the number one personality type for anyone that wants to rule over the populace and steal everyone's money. And I do want to add, for those that are joining us, to hit that like button. And if you want to become a client of Tim Picciott, who's also here live with us, we have the link below in the description, as well as our new podcast channel on YouTube, which is called Whamcast, which you can subscribe to as well. We got Teespring, GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, all this stuff that will keep independent media alive, as well as crypto addresses. We could use that right now. And with that said, I want to go into some questions, because we got a lot of people in the chat that are asking about a multitude of things. The super chats help a lot, folks. So if you can help out with the super chats, we really appreciate that. As George V says, it's a mad world. Well, I'm used to saying it's a mad world. But anyway, there's a lot of people as well that are talking about Bill Gates and the shadiness of Bill Gates. And obviously, as we've talked about a few times during this show, he has quit Microsoft in order to focus on philanthropic things, including vaccines and climate change. So
my favorite, not to make a joke about this, but Sam Tripoli was saying he's like Babe Ruth out there calling out his pandemics, because just like a month ago he's talking about 67 million dead, or a month and a half ago, and he's like, he's Babe Ruth, pointing to the fences, calling for what's going on. But not to make a joke,
he probably knows better than anyone. He's probably the one making that decision. But anyway, I mean, it's allegedly. Just, we are living in such crazy times, and I'm almost starting to get a little bit used to it. Like, people are starting to get annoyed when I'm calling them. I'm like, did you see that? This is crazy. And they're like, yeah, we know.
The Dow is down 1,000 points, and now it's like a yawn event. Like, oh yeah, well, it was down 1,000 points the day before, and the day before that, and then
it was down 1,000 and up 1,000.
And never mind that, when you get into the percentages, it's down 10%. Watching the future of 10%. I mean, the volatility is crazy right now. Yeah. And obviously it has a lot to do with Fed intervention, as we've been going into.
And the crypto fear and greed index right now, earlier today, was a 10 on the crypto fear and greed index right now. And so for me, as a long-term holder, I would definitely be looking at trying to add to positions. Not financial advice. Don't put in any more than you can afford to lose. Yada, yada, yada. If you do need a financial advisor, you're looking at one right here. And why am I able to make videos right now? Because I don't need to call my clients, because they're all happy that they are still up. So I don't have to be freaking out, calling everybody, going nuts, because everybody's in good hands. Because we talked about this, and in the video that Josh and I did that was called Markets at Serious Risk, that I think was released like the day or two before this went down, there's like a little 2-minute clip where I said, listen, I am 100% confident in this strategy. This is the way to go to beat things out. And looks like John, do you have your money cannon today? Did you bring it to work?
No, I did not.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, Monday we're gonna have another 500 billion in repos. So,
but I mean, obviously your strategies have worked extremely well and have been really beneficial for your clients, Tim. And that's why I definitely think that people should be looking at that link and following up with Tim, because obviously it not only has he been able to save his clients a bunch of money, but a lot of people have lost their clients a lot of money in this crash, and a lot of people are ripping their hair out over this.
Hey, every old banks in Canada are sending out letters not to panic, not to sell anything to their just this is my prediction. Just wait and see until actually people get their monthly statements at the end of the month. You're going to see a lot more panics happening in the markets, because then the public that, you know, dump mass amounts of money in right at the peak, they're going to panic and sell on the way down here.
And I do want to, someone mentioned, Jack Meoff says replacement food drinks. How about ammo? Well, that's definitely a good idea too, in my opinion.
You might not want to read that. Might not read the full name on that one, dude. So
oh wow.
Yeah. So
great. I totally missed that. Anyway,
send Josh a super chat.
This is like better for that one. This is like Will Ferrell. Yeah, you have to send me a super chat now. $20. But anyway, I mean, so the issue is that businesses like Smith's, for example, Tim, stop it. Businesses like Smith's.
I'm not on the screen, so people do. So Josh can see me, but the other people couldn't. Now everybody can see me, and I was just over here dying and making Josh.
Yeah, man. But anyway, so Smith's is talking about cutting down their hours. Obviously, they're the parent company of Kroger's. They're talking about cutting down the hours of all the workers there. One, for their own sustainability as a business, but also two, I feel like they're moving towards closing down grocery stores and restaurants in the next little while, and it might be actually forced by law. And it's going to lead to probably more bailouts, a lot of small businesses going under, and also people not having access to food and water. Yeah, it's not going to end well in that case. Send in your questions, folks. We're looking for questions. I see a lot of statements, and I appreciate the statements too. But let's get some questions up and hit the like button on this video as well, because it does help with the algorithm. And check those links below, because we are insanely shadow banned and demonetized. And as you can see, we have 171 people as the market crashes, as some of the biggest historic news in history happens. And we are a mostly financial channel. We still have 171 people out of 138,000 people. So that should tell you all you need to know, because that's the amount of people we got on average. In the middle of the night when we had like
better. Everything is awesome. So it's all fixed. The Dow's up 2,000 points almost.
Go to bed and get wasted tonight. Celebrate. It's all over.
Yeah, something I'm not gonna do. But anyway, we got some comments here from, let's see, Brit VR. I have to be careful about the names now. I gotta look a bit closer. Anyway, says, what do you guys think about the rally today? Looks like the Fed. As we were saying earlier, I know a lot of people are joining us later. It's 100% the Fed. I mean, we saw a huge uptick, and we ended up at 9.36% up on the Dow on the day, ending Friday, which they think is probably going to be very good for money. I think this is futile. I mean, this is good for a lot of terrible people, but I think this is futile. I think they're trying to pump it up. It's amazing amounts of money being printed. Well, there's
a lot of pressure on the 30 and 20 years, the long range bonds right now. So the Fed needs to intervene there to then bring them down again. And so that's why I saw they started to actually buy in. You know, Tim was talking about outright purchases. Actually, there's been a program since December called outright Treasury Secretary purchases and outright mortgage-backed security purchases. The mortgage-backed securities are probably around 20 billion right now that they purchased, and it's more 150 to 200 billion dollars worth of treasuries that they actually purchased already way before they even started QE. So this is actually, like, we talked about it actually back where I called it the shadow QE, and now of course you get the real type of QE where they actually announces it. But they actually been doing these programs for a very long time, and almost $200 billion that they bought already in these assets under the radar in the gray zones where nobody has reported on it.
Yeah, absolutely insane. And we do have Boston Fed President quantitative easing. What did that say, Tim? Boston Fed's Rosengren says Fed may soon have to buy stocks. Yeah, that came out. What was that, on the 6th of March? You're muted, Tim. You're still muted.
Oh, you know what? Sorry about that. Yeah. So basically, the Fed President Rosengren was saying we should buy stocks. And on the same day, he also came out and said that quantitative easing might not work as well next time. And it's not working as well next time because we've had to print $1.5 trillion, and it's done absolutely, I guess, it's gotten us back to, we're still about under 500 points negative from when it was first launched because we went down 2,000 points. So Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're still down 10% for the week, I mean, it shows you something. And then the other real thing is if you take a look at the bond market action, it's crazy. I mean, the 30-year, it's at 1.6. At one point, I think it was at like 0.98 or something like that. So, I mean, you're talking over a 60%.
Well, now, Tim, you're seeing pressure on as I said, on the 20 and 30. They're massively jumping up right now because people are saying like, hey, actually borrowing to the United States is super risky. The market is trying to tell us. And that's why they need to intervene, as you said, in 30-year bonds and 20-year bonds, right?
Yeah, and take a look at these weekly and monthly numbers. Yeah, we had almost a 2,000 point update, and we're still down 10% for the week, down 21%
we were 10%, for the month. And then look at those numbers. This is ridiculous.
21.13% over the month.
And look at, and the thing is, and people always compare me to Peter Schiff. What has Peter Schiff's strategy been? It's been to have about the same amount of gold that my clients have, but it's been to be in is foreign assets. Look at the foreign assets on month to month. Almost all of them are down over 30%, particularly in Europe. Almost all of them go all the way down. Sea of red, sea of red, sea of red.
Unlike Peter Schiff, you know how to protect your passwords on your crypto wallets, I'm assuming.
I know how to do that as well. Unfortunately, I haven't had people give me a bunch of crypto like he was able to get. So if Anthony Pompliano is watching this, you want to send some crypto my way, or if it was Eric Voorhees actually who gave him his first crypto. So
yeah, I met Pompliano. He's actually a really cool guy. Hung out with him a bit last October. It was
I saw him at Coin Agenda. I didn't say anything to him, but I saw him hanging out at Coin Agenda.
Well, it's weird to just go up to random people and start talking, but yeah, those are the events to do it at. There's a bunch of comments coming in. Why says panic shopping starts in my Soviet Kanukistan? Yeah, absolutely. Even in rural Texan communities in the middle of nowhere, in extremely self-sustainable areas, they've ran out of a ton of stuff. And I've been hearing from people around, I think Uvalde.
Hey, Tim, can you show the picture of when I was shopping? Tim, show everybody the picture. It's on the WAM group.
On our Signal group or on
WAM, and I did a video on panic shopping as well recently at a Walmart, and I checked up on other stores, and there's literally no toilet paper in all of Las Vegas. It's ridiculous, and it's so stupid because people are buying toilet paper, like 5-year supplies of toilet paper, and no food. Like, these people are ridiculous. Like, it's so crazy, and they're buying all the hand soap so no one else can wash their hands. Everybody, you don't need 10 years of hand soap.
Everybody think this is gonna get diarrhea. I don't know. It's funny, but
gross,
during the hyperinflation in Venezuela, toilet paper was the biggest commodity as well. This is interesting, how human behavior is, but that's what was one of the biggest hoarding things that happened in Venezuela as well during the hyperinflation. So this is not the first time.
Yeah, I did see some. Here we go. Dane W says, how long will Bitcoin take to reach 12K again after the next halving? I cannot say, and I won't say because obviously there's legal reasons. Oh, there's the image. Oh my God, what is this?
I don't know. That was something that. Okay.
Something
that John was sharing.
That was not me trying to get some beer.
That was not John. That was
that wasn't John getting drunk at the store from security camera. I don't know. He's Norwegian. They drink a lot of vodka. But hey, look. I mean, here's the issue. I can't say when crypto is going to find its way back up. But with that said, I do think that, and this is my opinion, that when the money printing really comes out and it starts affecting the price of bread and the value of the dollar goes down, and we're seeing that in Canada, by the way, the Canadian dollar is falling dramatically versus the US dollar right now. I've been watching it on a day-to-day basis, and the charts are pretty interesting to look at. It's not like end of the world levels, but it's definitely, there's a huge movement happening there. It's which one falls to the bottom first, obviously, but they're both falling. But I think when we see a huge knock off the value of the US dollar, then we're going to see a lot more people rush into Bitcoin. And also,
you're going to see the exit, Josh. When everybody pulls for the exit, when everybody's lost their money and they got whatever they got left, they're going to try to run for safety. They'll run to gold, silver, and crypto for sure, because there's not very much other places. No other currencies is going to be, trusted. So I think, this is what I've been saying all along, and Tim said it too. You're going to see that uptick as the panic has been full blown. Everybody's sold out what they can to, be able to call whatever margins or call their losses. And then you're going to see the trend to moving into anything that's safe. And that's when you're going to get the massive pump up. I think crypto might even jump lower, to be honest with you, during next week, because we could see a lot further, drawdowns in the markets and more selling, to be honest.
Oh, by the way, I now know why we are getting so few people watching right now, because the video name on YouTube is showing up as Tim Picciott's Zoom meeting.
Nobody wants that. So.
Oh my God. Dan Dix just messaged us in the chat about it. Can you put in the normal title? Is it possible to do that at this point, Tim?
I mean, it'd be easier if one of you guys did it, but
well, it's already in on the YouTube, but it's not showing up on the actual thing. Isn't there a way for you to put that into Zoom? I was wondering, I'm like, this is crazy news, and we're getting like 160 people.
I'm gonna mute myself and use my other computer to do this. Hold on.
It's not gonna end the stream, is it? Anyway, I'll keep talking as we're moving here. We'll change that title. Thanks for letting me know.
Guys, I gotta get going right away, so I gotta get home. I'm sitting here in the parking lot, so it's been very interesting, to say the least, what's happening on a weekly basis here, and it's just crazy. I don't know, guys. I have a feeling that we're heading for something really significant here, and I think the global financial depression, the global depression has started, but we don't know it yet. We're just in the very early stages of it, and I think this is it. I think everybody is borrowed up to the limits, and there's nothing good coming out of this COVID-19, and it's just going to put so much pressure on the world economy that people are going to stop believing in the value of their currencies, which they've been strained already. And then now with the governments, basically juggling, they're banning everything, but then they're juggling, giving up people enough money to survive on. That is not a good combination at all, where we're heading here. And I think we're in for some serious trouble over the next couple of weeks for sure. Even though that, what we got to remember, we just had a 9.71% uptick, and we're still down 21% in the United States. That is, just insane to think about in the first place.
I know, yeah, Josh. What do you want the title to be? Is it stated?
Well, I'm putting it in right now, manually here on my phone.
Well, I'm in it right now. If you just wanted to tell me.
So. Well, it's here. I'm just putting it in. I could copy and paste it. It has to look a certain way. Yikes. But if you want to talk,
think of the positive. There's less people than now who heard your comment reading now. So I mean, always look at the bright side here. That no one saw Jack. So.
Oh my God. Okay, I just saved it. That should do something. Yeah, I just changed it. Oh my goodness, crazy. But
yeah, actually, just one thing for guys that are interested in this whole repo madness, I actually have created. If you go to my website, theeconomictruth.org, and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, actually, there's on the top too. You could reach all the repo statistics that's happening right now that I added up on physical charts that are interactive. So you can actually see that as well if you're because that is the actual back end of what's really happening, is a massive liquidity crisis, and they're just keeping banks solvent by feeding all that money into the market.
And where is that again, John? I'm on your website right now. So
yeah, it's at The Economic Truth. You'll find it actually at the top. If you go further up, Tim, you just go slowly down, and you'll actually see it in one of those blocks projects. If you go a little further down, almost there. One more.
Keep it going. There we go. Federal Reserve repo.
Yeah. So here it goes. So now you'll actually see, this is actually from my Infogram site. So I've embedded it into my site, so it's easy and accessible. But here you can see, this is not the actual, like I'm going to update it over the weekend for this week. But here you can see, this is actually the overnight repo. So you see those are not over submitted. But if you go to the next page, Tim, there's actually a page button underneath. Yeah, there you go. Here you go. Here's the term repo. So here you can see the massive, this is the 2-week term repos, and you can see a massive oversubmission right now in those, and that is continuing actually, by the way, over the last couple of days.
And so people know, the red is the demand and the green is the amount that they're actually accepting.
Yeah.
So there's way more demand than there is actual accepting as of right
Yeah.
now. But not anymore, because now there's $500 billion repos going on 3 days in a row.
So insane. Well, we hope you have a good rest of the day there, John. I appreciate you joining us today. I'm currently fixing now a problem I made in the title.
Well, John, do you know when the Fed updates their balance sheet again?
Well, it was supposed to happen on Wednesday. Tim, go on to their balance sheet right now.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm doing that right now.
Because I have been looking for their latest Wednesday update. It says that it's supposed to happen on Thursday. Has it happened yet, or are they actually withholding information now? Because this is interesting, because they always have updated it on a Thursday or Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, it's not showing. It was showing the 3rd or the 4th. Okay, here we go. Updated March 12th. Okay, let me see.
So this is okay. So this should be like, let's see what we're at now.
All right, let me try to zoom in on this here.
Yeah.
So we went from. Actually, it's still going back. It's still going. It says updated March 12th, but the screen is only going out to the 4th.
Yeah. So this is interesting, guys. So they're actually.
But look, you see, it says updated March 12th though, but it's only going out to the 4th.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So what is going on now? Fed, what are you not telling us? Look at this.
Yeah,
These bozos.
It won't go
They're
out.
hiding for the first, because they always, as I said, Tim, they always update this on Thursday, usually Thursday morning or something, or Wednesday in the evening. And so they're not.
They're busy
right now. So what's going on, Fed?
What's
going on?
They're self-quarantining. They're self-quarantining, John.
Yeah, the Fed is on quarantine. Nobody can put up any stats anymore, so we don't know how big their bailouts are.
There's no more toilet paper for all their BS that they've been spewing out the past.
I want to give a big shout out to where is it? Dustin Young, who sent $10 in the super chat and says chemtrails are a major issue too. Well, I certainly don't disagree with the issues of stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. I really appreciate the super chats. They go a long way. I thank you to Mose, who wrote Uvalde, just so I know how to pronounce it, in Texas, a Texas town, rural community, very small.
Well, we got global monetary engineering is also a huge problem now.
Yeah, well, I mean, literally the control of the populace, the poisoning of the populace, the destruction of the populace, the slavery, collectivism. It's all a serious, serious issue that we're facing on a day-to-day basis.
And Bill Gates is behind the atmospheric geoengineering as well. So, I mean, he funded that guy. I think it was like Keith Knight or Keith Smart or something like. Anyways, there's a whole thing. What in the world are they spraying? Why?
He's stupid.
Blood Muffin 123 says $782 billion injected into the repo market.
I was like, oh man, it's a hell of a super chat coming up here.
Well,
yeah,
we'll
I
see.
wish.
I don't know. I got to look at those numbers, because I don't think those numbers are actual. But the repo stats are out there. But for some reason, the balance sheet has not been updated for the first time ever, I think, on an actual date. So this is interesting. What are they not wanting to show us? Is it above record highs now?
It reminds me of when they stopped publishing all the M3 data. Like, oh, it's just way too cumbersome. When like literally all you need to do is like add one more column over. I mean, come on, guys, we know what you're up to.
And Gary K says, guys, please donate. Help Josh if you can. Any amount. He really needs the help. Please click the like button. Sub share. Gary K. Well, thank you for the nice comment. I appreciate that, Gary. We got lots of people commenting. I know John has to take off soon because he's hanging out in a parking lot like someone that I'm not going to mention in this video out loud. But
before I go, Josh, I just wanted to promote my global risk report of 2020 that I have. You can find it on my website, in my shop. I saw some guys actually buying it yesterday. It's very important right now because it's really calling out the actual risks that we're seeing that are starting to unwind as we're seeing severe problematic issues there. And as you can see there's the report. It's a 178-page report that took me 3 months to put together. So there's a lot of very interesting, very good information there that actually, if you go on it, Tim, you could, let's show people here and see who's given feedback on it, actually. This is interesting. So go down, all the way down here to the bottom. And here you go. So these are the people that are given feedback.
Oh, financial advisor, you can't trust them in this case.
Yeah, so here you go. Here you can see actually there's a former World Bank economist, and he worked at Deloitte and PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then of course James Turk of Gold Money. I know how much you love him, Josh.
Oh yeah.
Not so much James Turk himself, but some other guys there. But he
Thanks for
actually
reminding me.
also, he also gave great feedback on the actual report as well. So you just see the big guys out there are thinking greatly on my work and think that this is, I'm actually ringing out the real alarm bells that people should pay attention to.
Well, I really appreciate all that you do there, John. And as Ludwig Gorgon says, the Fed, bye, bye, bye. As John takes off, I'm gonna go into one more article with Tim here that I sent to his email. Thank you, John. We'll see you later. Have a good one. Don't get the Corona AIDS, and stay safe out there and prep and all that kind of stuff.
Adios, guys.
See you later, John.
See you, John. And what article was that? Because I had a bunch of some of my.
It was a new one that I just sent to you. It's called JP Morgan officials officially forecast. I just sent it to your email. It's from Market Insider, Business Insider. I can start going into the title for you here. It says JP Morgan officially forecasts a coronavirus-driven recession will rock the U.S. and Europe by July. So I think I sent that through your email.
Yeah, I'm updating my email right now.
All right, no worries.
Yeah.
And for those just joining us, make sure to hit that like button. I really appreciate everyone tuning in today. And there's there's no shortage of stuff to go through. It's been nonstop all day. And Nansaction says,
what's the title of it? I could probably get to it just as easy.
It's JP Morgan officially forecasts a coronavirus-driven recession will rock the U.S. and Europe by July. I just Googled recession, and it was one of the first things to pop up in Google in the news section on the front page. All right, so as the article from Business Insider says, JP Morgan officially forecasts a coronavirus-driven recession will rock the U.S. and Europe by July. It's about time. We've been talking about this for a long time, and JP Morgan has decided to just get to this issue.
It's about time we had a pandemic that rocked everything.
Oh, my God. Anyway, as the article goes into, the U.S.'s biggest bank expects the coronavirus pandemic to sink the U.S. and European economies into a deep recession as soon as this summer. JP Morgan's view of the virus have evolved dramatically in recent weeks as the outbreak has spread further around the world, fueled. Could you scroll down there a bit? Spread further around the world and fueled the worst stock market sell-offs in decades. The bank's economist wrote in Thursday note. The U.S. economy could shrink by 2% in the first quarter and 3% in the second. JP Morgan projected, while the Eurozone economy could contract by 1.8% and 3.3% in the same periods. A technical recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative gross domestic product growth. The bank's emerging markets economists haven't updated their growth estimates, but evolving news on the virus and the material tightening in those markets' financial conditions make it reasonable to expect further downward revisions in global first half GDP. The economists wrote. The outbreak was initially deemed a short-lived but disruptive shock to the world economies, but 2 key developments led the banks to brace for a much sharper contraction in the first half of the year and a novel global recession. Now, this annoys the hell out of me, Tim, because they're now just calling it the novel recession. It was bound to happen. We just have this catalyst called the coronavirus that happened, and now they're just going to blame it on that. They're going to blame it on smaller government. They're going to blame it on all the things that do not cause this stuff to happen, and then it's just going to repeat. What do you think?
Sorry, I was on mute, but let's just juxtapose this headline. JP Morgan officially forecasts a coronavirus-driven recession will rock the U.S. and Europe by July. And then we go down here and they have a little ticker, JP Morgan up 18% today. So they're basically saying, hey, there's going to be a big global pandemic. And that is bad news, good news, because now there's going to be a whole bunch of drastic measures taken by the executives to try to fix things. And I'll say that, I guess, in air quotes, try to fix things. But yeah, I don't want anybody trying to fix things because all the government does is make it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got a comment in the chat that the title needs to be fixed again. I don't see any problems. Do you guys see any problems? How's the title looking? Anyway, it looks fine on my end. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
mine has the whole panic is getting out of hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
People are saying that it needs to be fixed again. I'm not. Stevie, refresh the video. I fixed the hands part. I accidentally put Hans, like a German dude named Hans, instead of hand. I'm like Luke Rudowski here making. Oh my God. Anyway, so and Dan Dix is still watching. Dan, you got a question? I wanted to talk to you about your stream earlier. I was tuned in, and let's talk after the live stream because I need to talk to you a little bit about this coronavirus thing off the record and stuff because just some issue. I just want to talk to you about it. Anyway, I'm getting distracted here. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. If you haven't pressed like on this video already, I really appreciate it. The recession has been going on since 2008. This whole technical recession thing at an official level, for them to call it a recession, obviously that's huge. But with that said, I mean, everything has been propped up and faked for years. So I just feel like I'm getting to the point where it's just, after 10 years of talking about this, and then to see all this happening right now, and then people just suddenly being like, oh, recession, there's a word I haven't heard in like 12 years. It's like, how many times do you have to explain just basic fundamentals for people to kind of analyze the situation and go, the economy has been really bad for a long time. It's just been faked and propped up, and it kind of causes a cataclysm down the road when they prop up a currency bubble to the extent that we saw with the US dollar, and eventually it pops, and the bigger it is, the harder it comes down. And, you know, it's on people's shoulders. The heavier it is, the more people get crushed underneath. And it's a really sad state of affairs. And I'm just so sick of people suddenly just now they're like, it's weird. People panic and start like selling at the bottom and buying at the top every single time. Like every single time when you look at markets, like people are like trying to sell their Bitcoin right now. It hit 3,800 at one point. They're trying to sell it at 3,800. It's like, guys, do you not know how this works? Like, if anything, in my opinion, I would be buying a lot at 3,800 if I could.
Yeah, I was just pissed that I don't get paid to the end of the month instead of getting paid every Friday. Because if I was getting paid today, maybe that's why it shot back up. People going in there with similar ideas. But I did have up on screen earlier it's shadowstats.com. That's John Williams' site, famous economist, and so I guess at least in these circles. So what this is showing what the GDP is, and the reason, and so what they're by their official number or by Shadow Stats numbers, it shows that we're in recession. And what they're doing and how they get these numbers is the crux of how they do this is the inflation numbers. So if the inflation is calculated at 2%, but let's say it's really 6% based upon how they calculated it in 1990s, or let's say it's really closer to 10% based on how they used to calculate it in 1980. So if you take even the more rosier scenario, let's say it's 6 and the GDP is growing at, let's say 4, then you take 6 minus 4, and then that gives you a 2% GDP. Now, what if the economy is growing at 4, but the inflation's really growing at 10, you're technically then losing 6% of your purchasing power. And so that's one of the big ways that they screw us, and how I wrote a little booklet on this called How It's Rigged the Economy. You guys can go get that if you want to text Liberty Advisor, one word, to 71441. You guys can get that free book because it's just so important information for people to know, because there's so many ways that they rig these numbers, and it's very important because the inflation number ties into GDP, which ties into so much of everything else that goes on. Right. And no, it's just so frustrating when you know what goes on. It's so frustrating having to deal with this with all the Obama supporters, and now having to do the exact same thing for all the Trump supporters.
Oh, but man. I feel the same way with marijuana, with wars, with all these issues going from like Bush, then Obama, and then Trump. And it's just the same thing over and over again with slightly different variations in the middle. But at the end of the day, it's collectivism. We're going to get going very shortly, but I do want to, Danny says, I choose to be prepared instead of mock. I'm not mocking. I'm calling out a very real problem. People should be prepared, and we've been telling people to be prepared forever. And then people wait and wait and wait to the last moment until, in some cases, it is too late. And that's dangerous for them, not me. It's dangerous for them. And I feel bad for them. And it's bad for their families. It's bad for the people around them. And I just wish that people listened more and just took precautions and looked at history and were responsible, as responsibility is a basis of freedom itself. It's just really frustrating to me to see that over and over again. 100% Canadian says, is 104-ounce silver for 1 ounce gold a better deal? I don't know.
Somebody commented, Danny commented, Jay, here there have been people that have been dying in nursing homes, and then Jay comments, people die all the time in nursing homes. So I don't know. I just thought that was.
Yeah, so that's true, but not at the rates like this. Like my grandmother's in a nursing home.
Well,
Here's the issue.
it was specifically in the question of, do you know anyone personally that's been affected by this? And so people are saying, oh, there's people in nursing homes that
I do, but I can't speak about it publicly. But look, so here's the issue. The flu, and I mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to blow through this real fast here, but the flu hits 1 billion people a year. So when you hear like 1 million people a year dying from the flu, that's 0.1% of people die from the flu. The coronavirus obviously hasn't hit anywhere near that amount of people, but hasn't started really spreading yet. It's according to epidemiologists that are way smarter than I am, and I'm going to take their word over internet warriors. I'm sorry. Until I see evidence to the contrary, it's on the other side to prove the evidence. And obviously there's a lot of shadiness as far as testing, as far as hoaxing, as far as causing fear. But with that said, with a 0.1% death rate for the normal flu, and even less for swine flu, which actually fell down to about 0.02% of deaths for that, which I don't know why that was a big fear issue. Coronavirus is killing 3.7% to 6% of people, and it spreads more easily than the flu. So if it spreads more easily than the flu and it's just starting, then it's suffice to say the numbers aren't relevant. The percentiles are. The percentiles are what tells you the truth in the matter there, and that's the science of it. And with that said, obviously we shouldn't be in fear, but we also shouldn't be stupid and just lay back and let things happen. It's not about you as like a 25 or 30 or 35-year-old getting the coronavirus. It's about spreading it and elderly people, and it affects people that are overweight, which over 40% of Americans are considered overweight. It affects people that have lung issues. I have lung issues, people with asthma, and people with autoimmune diseases, which is millions and millions of people. So for that reason, millions and millions of people are at risk. So I need to point that out. We have to stop saying, well, the flu kills more people. Of course it does, because it reaches 1 billion people. I mean, if we were to look at coronavirus spreading at the rate that it very likely will, as it does spread more easily and faster, and the incubation period is 4 days, then we are looking at possibly 1 billion or more people getting it. And one Harvard professor epidemiologist, who has actually been disputed by another Harvard epidemiologist, so they've been fighting over this, says that about 70% of people could very well get it. So if 70% of people could get it, that's like untold over 100 million deaths. I mean, so obviously, while we shouldn't all run and hide, the fact of the matter is there's a difference. There is a complete difference between the flu and the coronavirus, and it's not in favor of the flu over the coronavirus. It's actually in favor of the coronavirus over the flu. So we need to get down to the facts here. I was on the other side of the fence. I was laughing. I was scoffing at this. And now we know the facts. I went against my confirmation bias and looked at things I didn't agree with, because I knew we have to get to the truth of the matter. And the fact is, it's dangerous. It's weaponized. It's being put out into the populace in order to get people subservient, but it's also dangerous. We can't just blow over the fact that it is dangerous because it's being used to cause fear. But take your vitamins, wash your hands, disinfect, don't spread things. And yeah, just be very careful and be wary of the martial law that is to come. But you had that up on the screen there, Tim. That was interesting. You had something on something up from Zero Hedge. I could probably grab it up myself.
All their advertisements keep popping up. But 1 billion infected in 81 days, explaining exponential growth in I don't know how to pronounce it. Epidemics.
Yeah, it's so it says, while China is recovering according to its official numbers, the rest of the world is escalating aggressively in terms of the exponential growth of COVID-19 cases and sadly deaths. How bad can it get if the rest of the world does not go full China in terms of authoritarian crackdowns? And see, that shouldn't be the question. That shouldn't even be the question. I mean, that's where we're at. It's crazy that we're even having that conversation, but that shouldn't be the question. Obviously, Canada is talking about closing their borders. The U.S. is talking about closing their borders, even with Canada. There's a travel ban from Europe unless you're American, which kind of goes against the whole point, because if you're in Europe and you go to the United States and you're okay if you're American, or what would be the difference if you're European? The mitigation is tiny and minor. And obviously, the cruise ship industry is getting hit. Flights are insanely cheap right now. But yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is China is leaving this stuff in place after the coronavirus goes away. And then they have this insane control grid. They already had a crazy control grid, and now it's even bigger. Thanks, coronavirus. Thanks, government and fear mongers. Again, it is a concern, the disease itself, but we need to be very careful about what this allows. Anyway, we're going to get going right away because I know I've kept Tim here for hours now. So obviously he needs to get other
I've been
stuff
in this chair
done.
all day. I've been in this chair all day. I also have a standing desk too here, so I guess I could have stood up. But
Yeah,
let
you
me
could
just
have,
take my colloidal silver on air.
oh, there we go.
Not medical
Colloidal
advice.
silver.
Not
There's an
medical
ad.
advice. But,
Yeah, well, and a lot of people are talking about nano silver and nebulizing that, as well as hydrogen peroxide. There's a lot of different things that people are talking about. I don't know. I'm not a health expert. I just know that there is obviously stats and numbers that prove
just
it.
do the opposite of what Josh says because he's always sick. So maybe you're definitely not.
I'm
a
not
health
always
expert,
sick. So the thing is, I'm always fighting. I can always fight off the illnesses, but then I get a lung infection. Except for just the other day, I got a flu, and it lasted 1 day. Seriously, 1 day. I took 22,500 milligrams of vitamin C. The bottle said take 2 pills a day, which is 1,000 milligrams. And I'm like, no. So I took 22,500 milligrams instead. And it was great. I woke up literally the next day, and magnesium and apple cider vinegar and oil of oregano and zinc and even MSM and stuff like that as well. And a little bit of Tylenol also because I felt horrible. But by the next day, I was live on YouTube.
Media, some
What's
daily
that?
MSM, some mainstream media. But we do have a comment from Tina. Actually, it says most people listen to allopathic doctors, Rockefeller medicine for their health advice. Those who know better are not worried about this virus, more worried about the government removing freedoms.
I am more worried about that. I'm just also pointing out that there are serious problems with it. People are blowing off the serious problems with this illness that affects elderly, overweight, people with asthma issues, and people with autoimmune diseases. The fact of the matter is that is the case. Most of us will be okay, but carrying the disease on can kill a lot of people. And actually, I wanted to mention that in Italy, they are actually giving people murder charges for defying the curfews and the quarantine, which is crazy. It makes sense. Italy's always been very pro-fascism, so that is a big issue. But again, these are the issues we're dealing with. Again, we shouldn't be in fear and hide under a bed. I'm still going outside every day.
500, choppiest week in the S&P 500 since Hoover was president. So not a great comparison there.
No, not at all. But I do go for the natural stuff almost entirely. I go for the vitamins almost entirely. But with that said, that doesn't mean that the coronavirus isn't dangerous. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. And I know that there are faulty tests and I know that there's fake numbers, but there's also covered up numbers at the same time where there's people that aren't being counted as coronavirus patients that have it. And it's being spread at a far greater rate. And then China's BSing the you-know-what out of this. Tina is saying, I haven't seen a doctor in over 15 years, 5 kids, always healthy, no pharma. That's fine and good for you. And I praise your ability to stay healthy naturally. And that is the way, I believe, the answer. I'm not talking about taking pharmaceuticals here. I'm just saying the fact of the matter is illnesses exist and this illness exists and it is affecting a lot of people. And it's not going to affect children for the most part. Most kids are going to be fine. It's not going to affect most people under 60. Most people are going to be fine. Even over 60, most people are going to be fine. But the rate is far, far, far higher, 30 to 60 times higher in death rates than the flu. That's just a fact. And I'm not going to argue with the facts because the facts are there. But yes, natural cures are the way to go. And not being stuck at gunpoint under quarantine in your house that's not the way to go. I'm still going out every day. I'm still leaving the house every day. But
infecting everybody with your corona AIDS. No.
Yeah. All right. On that note, you're going to have myself swatted here. I appreciate you going into all this stuff with us.
Well,
Tim,
we'll just send it over to Kingsley's house. So it's just a few doors down.
Oh my God. Yeah. So by the way, speaking of Kingsley, if you haven't joined float.app, flote.app, join us there. I'm at Josh Sigurdsson as well as at Wham. Tim is at the Liberty Advisor ending with an OR. And you can find him on there as well. And obviously, Float is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging. And of course, monetization on videos, super chats on videos in cryptocurrency, pledging, and no algorithm on the timeline. So you can actually see what you want to see. So go join us on float.app. I'm not getting paid to say this. I'm saying this because I seriously believe in it and we need to do this shift. And by the way, with Facebook and Twitter collapsing and inevitably with the tech bubble that they're involved in Silicon Valley, I think it's a really good time to start making that move. over to these.
I know you're losing sleep over those big tech giants collapsing, Josh.
Oh, I know, it's just horrible. I'm so sad for YouTube that has literally ripped away almost every cent that I've made. I mean, I'm making almost nothing, and I have to literally move to the Middle East to survive and be homeless. So thank you, YouTube. I appreciate. I never thought I would say that I'm doing so badly with this money issue because of YouTube that I have to move to the Middle East. But I actually like the Middle East, so it's okay. But my God, I need so
if they let you escape America or the USSA.
I do want to escape the USSA, but I love the United States. I can't stand how totalitarian it is. It's not by the founders. It's not free. But I want people to definitely go check those links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, help pledge to us. Even $1 a month makes a huge difference for Wham. Make sure to check back and make sure you're subscribed. They unsubscribe people all the time. We're shadow banned insanely, so make sure to share the videos. You are the guys that are keeping this thing running, this machine running. You are the heartbeat of this media. So I really appreciate everyone joining us. Hitting that like button helps, commenting, all that kind of stuff. Thank you. Join us on Flow. Join us on Minds. Join us on BitChute. Join us on Instagram, World Alternative Media. I'm on Twitter at World Alt Media. And go to thelibertyadvisor.com and become a client of Tim's. It'll make a big difference because, I mean, honestly, his results have been amazing. We need to get going here. We've been on for an insane amount of time. And we got Tim pointing.
This is like the craziest sky that's outside right now. I don't know if my camera can like reach the whole thing, but it's like hard. It's probably can't really focus on it. So I've got this little crystal lamp. It's literally like the same exact like hue in the sky. It's crazy right now. So if anyone else in Arizona and Phoenix want to check out the sky right now, it looks ridiculous. So I'm going to go outside, check that out. Appreciate it, guys. Sorry that we had the Zoom thing down below.
Mushrooms. Yeah, whatever. We'll figure things out as we go. But I appreciate everyone joining us. Thank you, Tim. And check those links below. Share this video, and we'll talk to you soon. There's no shortage of news. Again, like I said before, the apocalypse is a pretty strange beast, but we will get through this together, my friends. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdsson and Tim Picciott with his Hillary Clinton toilet paper, which is going to come in handy soon, unfortunately. Signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.